What's the big difference between USB and XLR microphones? What kind of equipment should you bring to a conference to record interviews? What are some good inexpensive earbuds? And what does normalized audio even mean? In this video, we're going to answer 20 questions from our Riverside community group on Facebook and other communities. So if you have a question about recording high quality video and audio content, head over to our Facebook group. We'll put a link in the video description. Join there and you can ask questions. Not only do we answer in the comments, but we're going to try answering you in video. So here's 20 questions, rapid fire, let's go. This first question from John, he's actually asking about the Riverside editor. He wants to know if you can reorder who's on top and who's on bottom, and absolutely. Click this little person icon in the top, and then you can drag the participants up and down between all of the different people, screen shares, and even media presentations, and change the order right here. Here's a great question from the Buzzsprout community. This is Well Blended asking what's the big difference between lapel microphones and using an arm that clamps to the desk. She has some medical conditions that makes her voice soft or wavering, and she's wondering what's the best mic to use. Because lapel mics are typically pretty small, they're actually not going to get as good audio quality as having a dedicated microphone on something like a boom arm. Using this for interviews and on the go, yes, that's the ideal situation, and you can record podcasts with these. But for Well Blended and anyone else looking to have just the best audio quality, we would recommend getting either a boom arm that clamps to the desk or a desktop stand, and then getting a high quality USB or XLR microphone. We're going to talk about some of those differences in a moment, and we'll put links in the video description to some recommended microphones. I love this next question from Wilmar. He's asking what's the big difference between the Shure SM7B, which is $400, and the Shure MV7 for $250. Now we do have multiple videos talking about pro microphones and USB mics. We'll put those links in the video description, but the MV7 is both a USB and XLR microphone that offers a lot of flexibility, and it does sound really good. But the Shure SM7B will sound a little better and does a much better job at room noise rejection if you're gonna have a lot of noise, or if you're recording with multiple people in person, the SM7B is gonna do a better job of rejecting any sound on the other side of the microphone and focusing on the speaker. But that Shure SM7B takes a lot of audio power to run. While the MV7, you can plug with a USB cable directly in your computer, no other additional audio equipment required. That SM7B is going to need a powerful audio interface like $800 or more, or you're going to have to invest in an inexpensive audio interface plus a cloud lifter or FET head for about $100. So that Shure SM7B, while it looks like it costs $400, once you take in audio interfaces and cloud lifters, you're really looking at $700, $800, $900 or more. So if you're just starting out or you're just looking to upgrade your microphone, go with that Shure MV7. It's a USB microphone, so it's easy to connect, and as you upgrade your equipment, you can still use it as an XLR mic later. This next question from Chris is asking, how do I begin outsourcing some of the editing, for an interview? This way it can save you time. Outsourcing is a great option. We have an entire video dedicated to that. Link is going to be in the description. But I would recommend going to sites like Fiverr, looking for some audio editing tools there. But also, as you record in Riverside, you can actually set markers. You'll see it down at the bottom when you're recording in the studio. If you've set those markers, you can actually share your recordings and all that information with an editor by clicking the share button at the top of that recordings page. Send that to an editor, then they can export everything to Adobe Premiere via an XML file, so everything will be laid out in the sequence timeline, and they'll see those markers if you're on a Riverside business plan. So try to set some of those markers, and if you're looking for an editor, check out fiverr.com, and we'll leave some other recommendations in the description. Al asked a question saying he's having difficulty hearing his remote guests in his headphones when he's using Riverside. Now, one of the things you really need to make sure before you head into the studio, you'll see this pre-studio lobby. This is where you choose I'm using headphones, you choose your video, microphone, and speaker output. If you're plugging your headphones directly into the microphone, like a USB microphone, make sure to choose that microphone as both the input and output. There you would choose it here as your microphone and your speaker, because the audio is actually being sent through the USB cable into that microphone and your headphones plug into that. But if you're plugging in your headphones directly into your laptop or computer via a headphone jack, then you'll want to make sure to click that speaker icon and choose the external headphones or built-in option. If you're using a Windows PC, also go to the Start menu, go to Control Center and Settings, and make sure that your audio output is set as that USB microphone if you connected your headphones to that, or the external headphone jack, and you should be able to hear your guest then. Ramsey's asking how to connect a USB audio interface to Riverside. Any audio interface you connect to your computer, whether it's a Scarlett Focusrite or a Mix Pre, Riverside will recognize that audio device, and you can select it right here in the lobby before you head into the studio. Now, if you have an audio interface with many inputs, even up to 96, Riverside might only see the first few channels or a mixdown, depending on your audio interface. But we do have solutions for hybrid recording, where you can still record all those many local channels and your remote guests in Riverside. To check that out, video above or in the description. I love this next question from Blaine. Riverside offers transcriptions in over 100 languages powered by AI, so they're super accurate. Blaine wants to know how we can use them. How can you leverage those transcriptions? We have several videos on that. Guess what? They're in the description. But I would recommend take the transcription from your podcast, put it on your website either as a blog post or just a plain text transcription. That helps with SEO. All those search keywords can now be crawled by Google and other search engines. You can also take that transcript, put it into something like ChatGPT or Notion AI, and create social media posts based on that content. Create a summary. This way you can put that in your podcast description box. As you guessed, we have lots of videos on how to use transcriptions and AI to create lots of content, videos in the description. Sarush is asking, how can he connect his XLR microphone to his computer? To do that, you're going to need an audio interface of some kind. The only way to get an XLR microphone into a computer, it has to go through a USB interface, so you'll need an audio interface. It can be inexpensive, like a Scarlett 2i2. That's just about $120, $150. There's even a Scarlett Solo, which just has a single channel, but you do need an audio interface to connect an XLR microphone to your computer to use in Riverside. Bob Mann is asking if you could take a finished video and import it back into Riverside for final editing using our amazing transcription editor. You can't take outside video files or audio files and import them into Riverside to edit. You can only edit recordings that you've actually done inside Riverside Studios. But like I mentioned before, I would recommend setting markers during the recording and trying to do a lot of your editing right there in the Riverside editor. And our Riverside editor is getting more powerful all the time, so just stay tuned. Anonymous member here is asking how you create multiple studios for episodes of your podcast. You actually don't want to create a studio for every new episode. You can reuse the same studio every time you record a new podcast episode. The great benefit there is you have one studio that houses all of your episodes, and when you click View Recordings, now you can go back and see all of the past episodes, download those files, or use the editor to create those finished products for social media or to upload to YouTube. So just use one studio and keep recording in that same studio, and we'll house all your recordings separately. Nick is using Riverside in an academic environment, and he's asking about recording to multiple studios simultaneously. To do that, you need to check out our Riverside business plans. You can contact our business team and they can tell you all about it. Link in the video description. Ben Ryman asked this question in the Podcast Movement Facebook community. He's going to a conference and he wants to be able to interview people as he's walking around, I imagine. He's thinking about renting equipment. Now, I would recommend for a conference situation, a lot of times there's fast movement, everybody's going around, so having a ton of equipment and trying to move that around a conference hall is not super conducive. I would recommend using lapel microphones like these Rode Wireless Go 2s. This actually is 2 different lapel mics and a receiver. So you can record an interview, put one on yourself, put one on your guest, and you can even get these little magnet attachments for these lapel mics. So while there's a built-in clip, and you can clip that to someone's clothes, you can also use this magnet, put the magnet inside, and the lapel can just stick right here. Super fast to set up, these record incredible audio, and you can actually connect these to an iPhone or mobile device and record the video right from your phone. We have an entire video on a Pro Creator mobile setup. You can check it out above or in the description. If you're looking to rent a camera, I would recommend a mirrorless camera, especially a Sony camera, maybe the A7S III or A7 IV. They have incredible autofocus, especially eye-tracking autofocus, which if you're doing the interviews, you don't have to think about whether everything's in focus or not. So I would rent a Sony mirrorless camera, A7S III or A7 IV. You can connect this Rode wireless lapel system to that camera and record the audio directly with the video. And I would recommend something like a wide-angle lens, 35mm or lower, like 24 or 16mm. This way it can capture you and your interview guest with the camera not being too far away. So wide-angle lens, Sony mirrorless camera, Rode wireless lapel system. Asta is asking about good wired earbuds. We always recommend recording with wired earbuds with Riverside. This way you don't have to worry about batteries, AirPods might be dying, and sometimes the connection can be spotty. Using wired earbuds is the best way. Then you can also monitor your own audio. Shure has a great lineup of earbuds, anywhere from $90 all the way going up to several $100s depending on how much quality you need. For recording with Riverside, because earbuds are not affecting your audio quality, you can get something under $100. We'll put links in the description. If you're looking for really high quality earbuds, Beyerdynamic has some great models. Again, we'll put all the links in the video description, but don't feel like you have to spend a lot on wired earbuds just for recording. Daniel Kemp is asking about recording with a remote guest and all they have is an iPad. Well, great news. You can use external USB microphones with an iPad that has a USB-C connector. It sounds like Daniel's co-host has an iPad with a USB-C connector, which is important, and a Blue Yeti microphone. Now be sure to test before your actual recording. Some USB microphones can be a little finicky connecting to an iPad, but you should be able to connect a USB directly to your iPad Pro, use the iPad's camera to record the video, and the Riverside app. We have an entire video talking about iPad production. Check it out above or in the description. Ruben just recorded with Riverside and is very impressed with the quality. I'm not surprised. He says he sees the individual recording files but is having trouble seeing all 3. When you first jump into the Riverside editor, you might just see 2 people sometimes, depending on what part of the recording you've actually scrubbed to. Also, make sure when you click tracks that you've selected all 3 of the guests that you want to see here in the video clip. And also, depending on the layout, we do have things called shared AI layouts. Our full frame AI layout will focus just on the active speaker and no one else. So play around with the layouts, but if you want to see all three guests at all times, click all three of their tracks here at the top, and for layout, choose grid with gaps and you'll see all three. Jane downloaded her audio recording tracks and find that they're very different volume levels for her different guests and herself. I would recommend downloading the individual audio files, this way you can mix that audio individually. But if you edit with the Riverside editor, when you export, there is a checkbox for Normalize Audio. This will attempt to make all the audio levels even for all the tracks throughout the entire recording. Try that Normalize Audio in the Riverside editor, download that finished file, and I think it'll sound great. Back to the podcast movement community, Zachary is talking about normalizing audio as well. He's been manually leveling his audio tracks for many years and realized that normalizing audio might do it for him. And here I would recommend try out normalizing audio on your specific recordings and see how it sounds. Sometimes different software like Logic or GarageBand, when you normalize the audio, it brings all the audio to right at the highest level before it starts peaking. But sometimes when that happens, laughter or loud sounds might start distorting after you normalize the entire recording across all tracks. So try it out. If normalizing works for you and it's a good volume for everybody the entire time, then great, normalize all your Last two questions. Jerry Ross is also asking about recording on iPad, but using the Chrome web browser app on iPad instead of the Riverside app. We don't recommend it, and most often a USB microphone is not going to work in the web browser on iPad. Just a fun fact, right now with iOS 16 and earlier, even though you can download the Chrome web browser on iPad, it's still the same backend technologies as Safari. Unlike on a Mac, where when you download Chrome, that's running a different web engine than Safari. I know it's a little technical, but all that to say, it's not going to work on iPad. So use the Riverside app, and if you have a USB-C microphone and an iPad with the USB-C connector, you should be able to use that external microphone and the iPad. Plug in your external headphones into the microphone, because that'll be the only way to really hear yourself and your guests. Finally, Jane asked one more question about how to find guests for your podcast. Guess what? Yes, we have a video about that too. It'll be in the description. But you can just cold email potential guests, browse LinkedIn and social media, search for those kind of topics that your podcast is about, look for influencers or people tweeting or posting about that topic, DM them on that social media platform where they're active. They're more likely to see it and actually respond. Also look for authors of books or maybe TED Talk speakers that have covered this topic and try an email. Again, we have templates for a cold email to help you get those guests for the first time on your podcast. Check that out in the description. If you have questions about your podcast, you can leave them in our community group or just drop a comment below this video. We'll answer it there. And if you enjoyed this kind of Q&A session video, let us know. We'd love to do more of these. Plus, we're also going to have some live events where we can do some live Q&As as well. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe before you go. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.